What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 12 of Into the Necrosphere, and my guest on today's show is James Benson of NOTT, Amiensus, Chrome Waves, and various other bands that we will discuss over the course of a really, really fun conversation. Know what I am cranking this week, and that is partly because I have been traveling for work. I went to the States for about a week. I also had my 5-year-old daughter visiting me for a week, so that's just meant that my music listening time has been curtailed, and I don't want to sit here having to suck my thumb coming up with stuff to talk to you guys about. However, what you will do, what you will be hearing on this show, are a couple of clips off of the new NOTT record, The Great Furnace, which I can highly recommend. And I will post the Bandcamp link in the description of this video as well. So do check that out. And I hope that you enjoy the tunes. I also hope that you enjoy the conversation. Just before I get to it, a quick reminder, as ever, if you want to show any support to the show, the best way to do so is to like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, share it with friends, family, whoever you think is into a foul-mouthed or would enjoy a foul-mouthed South African man talking about black and death metal. If you don't watch the show on YouTube, then you can check us out on any podcast platform, subscribe on there, and experience the thrill and joy of a brand new episode of Into the Necrosphere on your mobile device, tablet, or laptop every single Tuesday. Anyway, on with the show. This is James Benson of NOTT.
I will say that I have two dogs, and if a UPS or USPS truck drives by, see, there's one of them already.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I listened to the interview that you did on is the channel called That Drummer Guy, and I think I think one of the dogs was going buck wild on a UPS driver.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Both of them will just break out and howl every once in a while together. Yeah. They just go. So I can't help it.
No, don't worry, dude. I completely understand. A very interesting choice of posters at the back. So you got Under Oath on one side, and then so you got Jesus on one side and the Antichrist on the other in Burzum.
Yeah, this is just my my recording office.
Yeah. In which I'm going to assume from the number of bands that you play in, you spend most of your time there.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Pretty much. I mean, this is I just have a laptop set up in here, but I've got, SM7B and pretty much all of my, my pedals here and guitars up here. I don't know if you can see. I have some of my, not all of my instruments back here. Downstairs, I have like the whole practice area. But I've got an oud and a 12-string Martin. The greenish Ibanez is just a ornamental 6-string to me. I've got one of my 7 strings back there. But yeah, it's also, I like my closet's also in here. So because I'm married and you don't get a closet when you're married. So
you're married and you're not allowed any of your toys anymore except for one confined portion of the house.
Well, I mean, I do have a fairly significantly sized basement. There's like 6 cabs down there, including one of my, I have a 6x12 guitar, and I have a 512 115. No, it's a 512 115 guitar cab, and then I have a 612 bass cab by Omega that I both have downstairs, and then I have all of the Amiensus guys' cabs, and my own. So there's 5 cabs between us downstairs. Guitar and bass cabs, 2 bass cabs, 3 guitar cabs, and then I've got 2 PA systems downstairs right now, and then I've got all of the Chrome Waves, NOTT, and Amiensus merch in tubs down there, and it's kind of a mess because I've been packaging like a lot of shit lately. So
yeah. Well, so okay, so let's just kind of summarize very quickly exactly how many bands you play in. So I've got Chrome Waves, I've got Amiensus,
mm-hmm.
I've got NOTT.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 others, and the names aren't immediately coming to me.
Fail.
Yeah.
And Adora Vivos.
And that's that. So just those 5.
Just those 5. Yeah, I have a kind of hidden project right now that I've written about 8 songs for.
Yeah.
That I've been jamming with a couple of other people thus far, but it's not metal. It's like my definitively not metal project. But every time I like get really close to putting a blast beat somewhere, I'm like, no, stop it, can't do that.
Yeah. What kind of music is it?
I would probably safely say it's kind of like rock, grunge, and shoegaze thrown into one, with a little bit of melodic black metal here and there, where I'm like, try not to tremolo pick here, but like it doesn't make sense if I don't tremolo pick in this section, so sometimes I have to. So so safely post rock, maybe post rock with a hint of grunge.
Yeah. You kind of think like, oh, this mellow bit would sound really good if I added some double bass in. Yeah.
Yep, it gets real close sometimes.
Yeah.
I am working with a drummer, and he does all the drum writing on an electronic drum set and sends it back to me, and I'm like, I think we both agreed early on. We're like, no, we've played enough metal. Like this should distinctly not sound like other bands we've been trying to or we've been in, because it's like it starts to all blend together eventually.
Yeah.
So,
considering how much or how many different bands you're involved in, how much of I guess how much overlap is there between what you do with your different bands? Do you often find yourself, I guess, midway through a Chrome Wave song, for example, and then thinking, fuck, that part would have worked really, really well on Nòtt, or it would have worked really well on Amiensus? How much? And I guess the follow-on question from that is, in terms of creative, how much are you actually writing in all of those bands?
That definitely varies a lot. Like Nòtt is like 95% me. I have the first EP was entirely, but this full album, it's called The Great Furnace. It's going to come out at the end of November. I actually have a bandmate. His name's Roman Pinter, and he's based out of Minneapolis, which is like an hour and a half north of me. And Roman did all of the bass, and he wrote all of the drums, and then he did a good amount of backing vocals, which honestly you might not be able to tell isn't me, because he pretty much just stuck to lows, and like our both of our like low range kind of sounds pretty similar. So he did a really good job of blending in that. I'm like, even sometimes I had to question, like, did I record that or did he record that? Like, let me open that project really quick. So Nòtt, I write, like I said, like all of the guitar work and all the vocal work I write. But now I have a bass player, and he also does the drums. He actually wrote sax on this album too, so it's pretty cool. He's like a mad good sax player and had never had an outlet for that in like a metal way. But otherwise, like Amiensus, it really varies album to album. Like our last 2 albums, so like we did a split last year with Oak Pantheon, who are really good friends of ours from Minnesota, and they also play like kind of funky black metal. I'd say their new stuff is like on the verge of power metal sometimes, if I'm being honest. But so I wrote most of that song, and then one of our former members, former guitar players, like kind of helped me like organize the guitar riffs originally that I sent him and put drums to it, because I'm not a drummer, so I usually have somebody else write drums. But All Paths Lead to Death, I think I wrote the vocals and for 4 of the 5 songs, and then I wrote like 3 guitar riffs on the entire thing. On the new Amiensus album, I wrote like I'm trying to think. We just ended up replacing like half the album, to be honest, and that's what keeps taking us so long. Is we'll be like, we're gonna do these songs, and then like 3 months go by and we have like 6 more songs, and we're like, let's replace it with these, and we like re-record a whole second half of the album. So I think I wrote definitively wrote probably 4 or 5 of the 9 songs, like mostly like came up with like the original like skeleton of the song, like the guitar riffs, the rhythm, and some of the leads and stuff. But the thing about Amiensus is like, like every song sounds 900% different than it did when whoever first presents the song, because so many hands get on it that it's just like, yeah. So whatever, like usually what happens is like the chord progressions are kept, and then like I'll write something and Alec, the other guitar player in Amiensus, will come in and be like, hey, I changed this whole section from a major to a minor. Hope you don't mind. And I'm like, no, it sounds pretty cool. Sweet. So we like keep something like that. And then, we have a new guitar player in Amiensus who wrote one song on the new album, and he just finished that. And I've just started doing vocals to it actually this week. So we have 2 songs left for that album to record. But Chrome Waves, the full-length record, with the exception of like a few lead guitars here and there, and the vocals Jeff wrote entirely. That was all Jeff. And some of the EP that comes out next month, The Cold Light of Despair. Let's see, I wrote entirely one song. Jeff did we probably kind of like 50-50 split the other 2, where I did like, on one song, Jeff did like all of the electric guitar and I did acoustic guitar. And then on the other song, Jeff did like all synth and like ambient guitar stuff, and I did all of the distorted guitar and I do all the vocals. And then on the covers, it was mostly Jeff. And then I basically just did vocals on the covers that we're releasing. So whenever somebody's like, hey, we should cover this song, I'm usually like, yeah, it sounds awesome, but I'm also like terrible at actual music theory. Like I'm like, if you tell me, like, it'd be like, hey, what chord are you playing? I'm going to be like, it's on the 7th fret, because I honestly, without like having to really think about it for a few minutes, don't know, unless I'm like, all right, well, my guitar's in D, so when I'm playing the 7th fret, I think that's an A. Like I have to do that. I'm not automatic like some of my band members who are I wouldn't call them music nerds. They're just like savants, to be honest. I don't know how to describe them. They wouldn't call themselves savants. They might call themselves autistic, but they're not.
But it helps. I think I don't think it's ever been confirmed for sure. But I've always I've heard rumors about someone like Angus Young, for example, being autistic, and you can kind of see the way that he plays and the way that he moves around on stage. I mean, there's definitely something going on there where the connection to what he's doing and his brain is operating on a very different level to what any average human being would be doing. Oh yeah.
I will say that 90% of my bands like to tab things out, and I can tell you what a tab says, but I could never translate it or put it into actual music. Like a year ago, I took piano for a year because I just felt really dumb compared to everybody, and I wanted to kind of learn something. And it's been like a year, and I already forget it. So that's pretty neat. So I remember what the keys are, but I don't remember how to play anything I learned.
So I wanted to talk about Nòtt because that's that's kind of the band that helped me discover all of your other bands. I think if memory serves me correctly, I can't remember if it was on a website that I saw a song that had been released off the EP or whether it was on Black Metal Promotion. But either way, I found it and absolutely loved it. And then just by happenstance, you and I happened to meet. But that band, the sound to me is a lot grittier, a lot more kind of raw and aggressive to any of the other stuff that you do. Was that originally kind of created as an outlet for you to get, I guess, to have that level of sort of, I guess, catharsis or that level of expression that maybe you didn't get in your other bands?
Yeah, 100%. That's it's the nail on the head. I'm really long-winded, so go ahead and cut me off anytime.
Don't worry, go for it.
I'm a counselor for a living, so my job is basically to either to listen or to talk to people all day. In which I've already worked today, so I'm good at talking. So just tell me to shut up sometimes. But I'll try to sum it up a little bit. But 2017, Amiensus did our last like significant record, the EP All Paths Lead to Death, and we like having Amiensus at that point and Fail to Decay were my like two live bands. I only joined Chrome Waves about a year ago this time, but like Fail to Decay is like distinctly its own thing. Like everybody in the band listens to pretty different music, but like we're best, I'm sure I'm going to lose lots of cred for this, but we're best described as deathcore. But in reality, like I never listened to deathcore. I mean, like I listened to Job for a Cowboy, but I mean, my favorite Job for a Cowboy album is Genesis. It's
I was just about to say the last two Job for a Cowboy albums you can't really call deathcore.
No, absolutely not. I mean, Ruination is fantastic too. Sun Eaters. I mean, they're all really good albums. I love Johnny Davey as a vocalist. He's maybe a deathcore vocalist or whatever. But Fail to Decay is not my forte in writing style, and Amiensus had always been given tons of flack over being a quote black metal band. Because some of us went to Bible college for one, and secondly, we sang in our songs. And the point of Amiensus was always basically like, we're a pretty diverse group of musicians with a lot of different interests. My favorite band of all time is Led Zeppelin. Not gonna lie. If I followed that up, my second and third would probably be Agalloch and Under Oath. So Agalloch is fringe black metal with, mostly it's just kind of folkier black metal, and Under Oath is distinctly not, most likely more like metalcore. So, and Led Zeppelin. So we really like never wanted to call ourselves a black metal band, but we were always like, well, like the point of most of our music is like we want to sound, and but like we always kind of go for black metal writing styles and riffs in general, but we didn't want to rule anybody's like talent out. And like we had good singers in the band, and we've had fantastic guitar players who can really rip solos and great acoustic players. So we always included that shit. And I don't know, we did this tour with Abigail Williams and Wolfhammer, and I think we were really all in the mood right after we got done, and we had a contract to like write an album by the end of the next month. We had like a month to write an album, basically. That we wanted to write something finally that was like meant for us to play live. Like none of the first two albums, Restoration and Ascension, were not meant to be played live. We had never intended to play live as a band until we started getting tour offers in like 2015, right when Ascension came out. So with that being said, like there are some songs on those first two Amiensus albums that were like 85 to 90 tracks. Like it's not meant for less than like 9 people to play. Like it's not. There's so many fucking parts. I can tell you like there are some keyboard sections in the first song on Ascension that were probably like there's some keyboard parts that were like 30 different instruments. It was absurd, and they get neutered a little bit whenever you mix something. We should definitely just release the orchestral stuff. But yeah, we wanted to play an album live that was like recorded live. We're like meant to be heavy. That's why All Paths Lead to Death came out. There was like very, very minimal backing tracks and keyboards on it for it. And really, it was just like we wanted to slam people in their face and just kind of like surprise them. But it didn't really come out like a black metal album because at this point, like we've been a band for 7 years and everybody's taste in music, kind of evolves. And ultimately, it came out with like kind of a couple like melodic black metal songs and then like basically like melodic death metal. and that's honestly where like we lay. And so when I went to do Nott, I was just like kind of in the same mindset. Like I'm still in this mode of wanting to just write the most aggressive stuff that I can. And in Fail to Decay, I do write a little bit of stuff in that, but with Fail to Decay, I really am just a bass player who like chips in, and I'm like, hey, actually that doesn't make sense, because my guitar player is really, really good, but he's like me, and like it's all ear, and he doesn't know any music theory. So sometimes I'll be like, you play that, that's not in the right key. But Darren's a good guy, so, and he's a fantastic guitar player. So anyway, yeah, I wanted to write a stupidly heavy album, and I did it the only way I knew how, and that was Nòtt. And I wanted to do something on my own, because at that point, like I was only in like 4 bands at that point, and I was just kind of sick of waiting for bandmates to do stuff. So to be honest, I was like, I'm sick of the process of like arguing with people about like mixes, or arguing with people about guitar riffs, and people getting upset when somebody doesn't finish something on time, or people getting upset that they don't think their opinion is being heard. And yeah, the EP came out in like 1 month, and I just was like, I have no qualms with like quality control like I normally would with Amiensus. So I was like, I'm going to record this myself. I'm going to have somebody else mix it, because I don't trust myself in that area. Sorry, dogs. Yeah, just throw it out there. And then pretty much the whole album that's coming out next month, I wrote within like a month of that span, right after that EP came out. And Roman and I were up in the cities at a show, and just started talking about it. And he had just left Prosthetic Records band, Reaping Asmodea. He was the bass player in that band for a couple of years, and wanted to do something like more melodic death metal, more melodic black metal, because he'd never done that before. And here we are, 2019, and about to drop another album, and probably having one for 2020, actually.
I was just about to say, you've been fulminating on this new material for quite some time. You say it was written a month after the EP came out.
Yeah. So it was written like pretty early 2018, actually, and it's actually been done for like a couple of months. Honestly, the hang up was I finally did reach a point with the amount of shit that I'm doing that I have like 12 songs that bands are like, hey, we need to write vocals for this, and I'm just like, I don't want to write the same thing for like 3 bands in a row, like we were just talking about. Like, yeah, it's actually gotten to a point where I have to like definitely really think ahead of time. With Nòtt, I went in and I was just like, here's my SM7B, plug it in, got my headphones on, I'm just going to start screaming whatever words come to my mind. And I wanted to do that because before, like, Amiensus and Chrome Waves, like, I planned things, I actually had lyrics. We, like, designed where they were going to go in the song ahead of time. We tried vocals, and we'd have vocals sit for, like, 12 months, and we come back and be like, no, that harmony sucks. Let's do something else here. Oh, we should add a singing part here. And, like, that totally has a place in music, don't get me wrong. But I wanted to just forgo that and be like, fuck this. This is all intuitive. This is all one take. And with Nòtt, I got to a point where this spring, this summer, so almost a year after we had like finished all of the instrumentals and stuff. I was like, all right, I'm going to tackle this whole thing. I had written like just the first song that's going to come out. We're shooting a music video for in a couple of weeks, actually. And I written just that song's vocals, and I was like, fuck this, I'm going to take the rest of these songs and do them all at once. Because I got to do something different. I can't just be, like Chrome Waves and Amiensus, I sing and I scream in, and I really wanted to avoid basically making All Paths Lead to Death 2, or A Grief Observed 2. So, I had to do something different and just like one take it. Write the lyrics on the spot for the most part. Some of them I wrote ahead of time because Roman pitched in and wrote some lyrics with me this time. So that was pretty cool.
Is there something liberating about that spontaneity and about an approach where really, and you can hear it on the album. You definitely could hear it on the EP as well. So much of what you're writing just comes from kind of sort of pure, I guess, instinct and feeling at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what it is, but maybe it's just the like raw feeling of like emotion, and that's a dumb way of saying it, but maybe it's like the raw like emotion of kind of anger, and I would say honestly it's kind of a little bit of a rush to just kind of do it on the fly and make it up. I mean, even sometimes I will like write out lyrics for a song really quick, but I won't have anything particular in mind. I'll just listen to the song while I write lyrics, and then I'll just freestyle it like a rapper, I guess.
Mm.
It's honestly most likely because it feels like a live performance. And even though, like, I'm not going to call bands scripted anymore, but like, I appreciate it, but I also appreciate the honesty in bands that perform. Like, I saw Robert Plant live last year. My wife got me tickets for Christmas end of 2017 to see Robert Plant in 2018. That was amazing. Like, Robert Plant is one of the greatest performers I've ever seen in my entire life, and he is one of the greatest performers of all time. My absolute favorite vocalist of all time. And there's something about his live performance versus the recording that with Amiensus I get a certain amount of leeway of doing, but we have backing tracks. I can't do too many things when I'm doing live vocals for it. With Fail to Decay, I just do backing vocals and I play bass, and I can improvise a little bit with bass, but we play in drop F, so there's not a whole lot of room to improvise when you're playing in a tuning that low. You have a point to playing bass that low, and it's to be low. In punk. But with NOTT, I was like, I want to do something where it's like, if I need to improvise live a little bit, it's cool. And if I'm going to improvise these vocals in a recording session, I wanted to make sure they were good too. Like I definitely destroyed it like several takes. It wasn't like everything was just like the first take, but I try to run through like the whole song once and then go back and be like, all right, I was pretty off time in this section. I'm going to have to re-record that, or like this whole song completely sucked. So I go back and redo the whole thing.
Just if I read you correctly, there are plans for NOTT to start performing live?
Yeah, it's kind of been a thing. Like we've been attempting to find a real band for it for probably like 6 months now, but it's really hard to find drummers that can blast at like 290. And I'm going to be honest, like I would definitely love like my drummer Chris in Amiensus to be able to do it, but he already lives 4.5 hours away and has to come usually out here to practice for one band, and I'm sure he's not going to have time to do it. Stuff like that. It's like all the drummers I know live on the other side of the country, and it's like I want a little bit of an organic feel of being able to actually practice, because like with Chromeways and Amiensus, we just like get together right before we tour to play and practice. Yeah. Fail to Decay, luckily, is like all pretty Minnesota local, so we get to practice and jam like fairly often. But the other two do not, and NOTT, we wanted to be like, all right, this is in Minnesota, or I mean even Wisconsin's only like an hour away, so we could have bandmates in Wisconsin, but not the other side. Like poor Chris and Kelsey and Amiensus are from Green Bay, so they have like a 4.5 hour drive out here every time we practice.
Yeah. What is the local scene like around where you are, particularly for black metal and for that style of black metal?
Well, we don't. So I will say that, like, so man, my dog's going crazy. Sorry.
Don't worry.
I live in Rochester, which is about an hour. It's like 90 miles south of Minneapolis, 100 miles south of St. Paul, or maybe that's backwards actually. But Rochester itself is about 120,000 people and doesn't have a real music scene per se. They have some dive bars that play DJ or have DJs, and some upscale bars that don't play DJs. And then we've got a lot of cover bands, and we've got a lot of kids who play acoustic guitar who think they're the next Elliott Smith. But That's about it, really. So Minneapolis and St. Paul have a pretty damn good scene, but it's kind of cliquey. I'm not gonna lie. Like, we're not like, my bass player in Amiensus is from St. Paul, so he gets a little bit of like local cred, but the rest of us aren't. So it's kind of hard to get in, honestly. We play outside of our state more often than we play in Minnesota. In fact, I think it's been almost a year and a half at this point since I've actually played with Amiensus in Minnesota. It's like there's definitely lots of separate local scenes. The black metal scene is like Panopticon and Obsequy, and their like friends are like their own scene, and False, they have like their own scene, and then there's everybody else. And Amiensus isn't cool enough to be a part of that scene, and we're not from the city, so we don't hang out with any of those guys, and that's just how it is. Like, would they like me if they had a chance to hang out with me? I don't know. I don't really care. It's whatever. Like, we do our thing, they do our thing.
So South Africa, where I'm from originally, when I leave from Malevolent Creation on the show, we spoke about that at length. I mean, I come from a place where, most bands, kind of reading between the lines of what you said there, most of their fan base are their friends, and it's their their friends that bring other friends that go to shows, and then they get 200-300 people at a local show. And if they ever went outside of their hometown, they'd be lucky to get 4. So it's like, yeah, I think if you have ideas beyond wanting to be part of a kind of local clique like that, I think it's just generally, I can see how it would be very frustrating, or at the very least, it's something that you need to disconnect yourself from, because there's no merit in trying to be part of anything like that.
No, it's like for us, it's like we were spread out between like southeast Minnesota and Green Bay, and Wisconsin. So it's this weird, like, we're not really local to anywhere, because we're not from the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul, and we're not from Green Bay. And I'm actually not the oldest. Our new guitar player Kelsey is now the oldest. It's kind of weird, but. I'm 28 and I have a full-time job. I'm married. My friends, for the most part, like a fair amount of them are my band members. But outside of that, they don't, like, my other friends don't give a shit that I play music at all. Like, they're not going to come to my show unless it's in Rochester. And even then, it's like probably begging them to come out to play. I mean, there's not really any point for us to play in Rochester because there's no music scene anyway. But
yeah,
I'm old enough now that, like, my friends don't care. They know I play, and they ask me about it. They're like, "Hey, how's tour?" and stuff like that. And they know I have a bus and spend too much money doing stupid shit with guitars that cost too much.
Did you actually go out and buy your own bus for when any of your bands go on tour?
I did. Last May, we bought. I say, like, me, Chris, and Todd and Amiensus bought a 25-passenger bus. And then Todd and I and my father-in-law took out most of the seats and built bunks in it. So we have 4 bunks. And then there's 2 seats behind the driver and then the very back row. So there's like 7 seats in total, 8 counting the driver. And then there's 4 bunks in it. And so up front, we have all of our merch and all of our amps and equipment. And then You can ride in the back row, or there's 2 seats up front behind the driver. And like for the most part, like we're, you know, either a 5-piece or a 4-piece, and then we might take somebody along with for photos and stuff. But yeah, it's plenty of room for at least 5 to 6 people to sleep and drive.
I was just about to say, how comfortable is it?
While driving, honestly, so like, I don't know if you've ever driven like a 25-passenger bus, but there's no shocks in it, and you just feel everything. Like, it's just like constantly like, dun, 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 dun. Yeah. It's really comical, honestly. Like, you can't, like, you can stand up in the bus, obviously, because it's like 10 feet tall. And like, part of tour is pissing in a bottle instead of stopping every time somebody's got to piss. But it's really fun when somebody's like trying to hold on to like the pole up front and pee in a bottle, and you hit the right bump and they piss on themselves. Something nostalgic about it.
Yeah. Grassroots, mate. But I mean, it means no bus rental costs. So when you go on tour, your overheads are a bit lower.
Yeah, but it's so freaking ridiculously expensive to maintain. Like we get about 8 miles per gallon. So terrible gas mileage. And this year in June, Chrome Waves is on tour with Tombs, and my brake lines went out between Omaha, Nebraska, Des Moines, Iowa, and Denver. And then my muffler fell apart and I had to get that rebuilt. And then Amiensus was in Canada at the end of our tour last September, and we blew a spark plug out of the head and it stripped it. So we had to have a spark plug reworn into a head, and otherwise they're going to have to rebuild the head. So we slept in the parking lot of a mechanic in Kelowna, British Columbia for 2 days while they fixed it. And then we drove 28 hours straight home.
God damn it! So basically, what you need to do is recruit a bandmate who's a bus mechanic. So,
right, I am lucky because like I keep it like 15 minutes outside of town at my wife's uncle's, and he's a mechanic, so he'll do work, but I have to pay him, so it's not free.
Yeah,
it's definitely not free. I spent about $1,000 this year on fixing stuff. Last year it was about $950 in Canada when we got stuck.
So, dude, I want to ask you. You mentioned earlier, and I've been meaning to interject it in the conversation, but you mentioned earlier that a couple of you. I don't know whether you were included. I was going to ask whether you were one of them, but your bandmates went to Bible college. Were you amongst that set?
I am, yeah. Yep. I went to Crossroads College and Lincoln Christian University.
And were you into black metal, or were you into the scene before, or was that something you discovered after Bible college?
Long before. I'm 28. I'll be 29 in May. I discovered black metal when I was about 14.
Yeah.
13, 14. Ironically, it was like the first 2 Underoath albums that I found first, and they're not black metal, but that style of metal was introduced to me, like more like kind of blackened death with keyboards and stuff, and I started kind of like just searching. This is pre-YouTube. So I would go on like iTunes, and I want to say Napster, and look for stuff like that, and I discovered Arcturus.
Yeah.
Aspiratum Symphonia, and listened to that album, and then through Arcturus discovered Mayhem and Dimmu Borgir, and then Agala, and pretty much that by that time I was like 14, 15, and the other guys who I've really been playing with the Amiensus guys for like 15 years now, for a couple of them. So
yeah.
we've known each other since like first year of high school. So it would have been like 2004 for me. So it's about 2004 I was introduced to black metal. But yeah, a couple of us went to Bible colleges. A couple of us went to the same one. I went to school in Illinois my first 2 years, and then switched moved back to Minnesota so I could go to a specific counseling program. But I did graduate with 2 majors. I have a double major in counseling, and I have a major in biblical theology and studies.
Oh wow! So did you keep that all low key while you were doing this, or did people, was it fairly common knowledge what you were into?
Oh no, yeah, no, absolutely. My dad actually taught at one of the schools, and yeah, it was common knowledge.
And how did they? And there's reasons why I'm asking you this is because I came from an extremely religious home. I grew up in an extremely religious community. I personally would say I regarded I saw myself as a Christian for probably until I was maybe 18, 19, maybe a little bit older. The amusing thing about that was always for me, whenever I as I was getting into stuff like Mayhem or Emperor. In fact, actually, it preceded that. It was, kind of first it's Metallica, and that's fine. When it gets to Slayer, then you're really starting to you really start pushing the Lord's patience. And when you get to Deicide and Morbid Angel, and in your mind you're starting to negotiate, like, well, God, I mean, you surely can't hate this stuff. You gave these guys the talent to play it. But no, I went through all the same shit, man. I remember in high school, I participated in like youth group and stuff, and most of the bands, I mean, not now, some of the previous members and one of the current members besides me, we all grew up with, like, Alec, our guitar player, his dad was a worship pastor. And I mean, Alec's family is like full of extremely talented musicians dating back like 70 years. His grandfather was a famous composer and from Hungary. Also escaped the communists after the fall of Hungary to the Soviets. We grew up around church stuff. We grew up going to even youth group and stuff, and we get questioned by adults like, "Why are you wearing a shirt?" Like, I want to say it was like "In Sorte Diaboli," the Dimmu Borgir album from like 2006 or something like that. That had the goat boobs on it. I want to say, like, I remember getting questioned about like that, and like wearing a Black Dahlia Murder shirt. Yeah, it was a good time. Yeah, I had I think where I pushed it furthest was I had a rebellion, a Samael Rebellion T-shirt that had the logos that had there was the old logo with the pentagram in. I wore that to church multiple times, and I also had a Morbid Angel Domination T-shirt that I also wore to church a couple of times. But I mean, as I said, I recall very clearly the negotiations with God that I used to have mentally. But the people that I was around in South Africa, a lot of the Christians are quite militant about it. So I got a lot of shit. I mean, in spite of the fact that I've read the Bible cover to cover and knew more about it than the vast majority of people that try to debate me on it. You had people that said you're a Satanist, and I had a group of people in school that very strongly believed that I could do black magic and I was going to put curses and hexes on them, all sorts of crazy shit, man. And it was all just based on the fact that at that time I wasn't even listening to the stuff really that I listen to now. But it's like wearing a Slayer T-shirt or wearing a Morbid Angel or a Pantera T-shirt. So I was curious as to how you experienced it on your side, in your side of the world, and kind of also how people around you at a place like a Bible college would have taken to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have kind of two distinct different like periods. So being that I moved to Minnesota when I was about 14 from Eastern Pennsylvania, or 13. So right when I started listening to black metal. The predominant denominations up here are either like Lutheran, Catholic, or non-denominational Christian. And so I grew up non-denominational. And I mean, for the most part, I was usually able to reason with like most adults and other kids my age that like, I can separate the lyrics from the message, essentially. Like, yeah, this might be distinctly like anti-Christian music, but it's music. Like, it's a different, it's like speaking a different language.
Yeah.
You know, I can listen to something and be like, I mean, people would be like, well, what you listen to and what you put into your ears is how you act. Like, that was my favorite saying. And I'm like, there is a certain level of truth to that. And being a counselor now, yeah, I mean, I agree with that to a certain extent, but it's like, you know, I'm not fucking Necro Butcher. I wasn't set out to kill Euronymous.
Oh shit! Did you saw that? I mean, it's nuts how he's so openly just admitting it now as well.
Yeah, well, I guess, you know, there's no, it's been long enough. They can't charge him with anything.
No.
Actually, I don't know Norwegian law, but I actually went to Norway when I was 17 with my dad because I love black metal, and he knew it, and he was real pissed, but he wanted to go overseas with me, and we had a good time. We were there for like 2 weeks.
Did you go to Helvete, to the original shop?
No, I was in Oslo, and then I actually went to Sweden for about 2 weeks ago. I was in Stockholm.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah. So not a whole lot. I went to Rockefeller, where Arcturus and Camelot filmed some of their DVDs and stuff like that. But
it is amazing to me that a bunch of very wayward young boys, I mean, because a lot of those dudes were 16 and 17 years old when they started writing music, could have had such an incredibly profound effect, not just on music as a whole, but so many people. I mean, you know, the thing that I find so interesting as well about black metal in particular, I think the average black metal fan, there's actually so much more diversity in the types of people that are into black metal. I mean, one of my best friends is one of the most buttoned down conservative human beings you will come across in your entire life. He does not own a metal t-shirt. He barely wears sneakers. So if you look at him from a distance, you'd be like, you know, you would never in a million years think of him as someone who's a black metal fan. This dude is one of the most dyed-in-the-wool black metal fucking acolytes you could imagine. And then, you know, it goes all the way to, you know, other extremes. I mean, obviously, I had Leorcifer on here, you know, who's a very famous tattoo artist who did some work on me as well. But, you know, massive black metal fan. There's I feel like it's the as much as I like not just metal, but a lot of other different types of music, I think black metal creates there's kind of a connection that it has with just, I think, a certain personality type that I don't think you can replicate with any other style of music. And I can't really put it into words because I know I'm probably sounding incredibly fucking clumsy right now with my choice of words, but I think you know what I mean. It comes back to that spontaneity that you mentioned about recording the NOTT album as well. It's like it's almost like the notes is this sort of sequence that unlocks this response inside of you, and it's just, there is no other music style that can do that.
Yeah. I can't remember the guy who interviewed Necro Butcher like maybe 10 years ago in a metal documentary. And my favorite thing, because you can YouTube this, is just when Necro Butcher's like, Germany sucks.
I was about to say, isn't that the Sam Dunn interview where he's like saying, you know, you say black metal is dead, fuck you.
Yeah, that is definitely my definitive most favorite thing. So, but Sam has a quote at the end of it that is basically like, you're either gonna get it or you don't. Yeah. Like, if it doesn't make the hand on the back of the neck and like make you feel powerful, then you don't get it. But that, I mean, like, that's fine. I don't give a shit. You know, that's totally cool. People have their own taste in music. I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, some shit is objectively worse than others, but like, you know, metal since I was 10 years old has always made me fucking jacked up. You know, maybe like the first time I heard fucking One Step Closer by Linkin Park, all right, I knew. You know, I was like in fifth grade. It was like 2001.
Yeah, so I did. I did a skip of Linkin Park. My entryway was AC/DC. Actually, ironically, on the way to church, I heard Thunderstruck, and I was like, "This is the fucking best." I was 9 years old. This is the fucking best I've ever heard in my life. And then AC/DC, onto Guns N' Roses, onto Metallica, and then somebody gave me a cassette with Decade of Aggression, the Slayer album on, and I remember hearing it. I remember hearing Hell Awaits for the first time, and I was like, again, you kind of, because of all the religious shit, you sort of slightly frightened about what you're hearing, but it's like, I can't help, I just have to hear this again. And you try and block out in your mind when Tom is going, I am the Antichrist. It's like, oh no, well, he didn't really mean it. Just carry on listening.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely been there. Yeah. And I was really into like the Christian metal scene as a high schooler. What really eventually like led me out of it was honestly Bible college. So I stopped going to church or being a Christian. Really, it was honestly the study of the Bible and biblical history and exegetical work and eisegesis that led me to stop caring as much. I was like, that's what led to my more so my disdain with organized religion in general. Yeah, I still enjoyed studying, Judeo history or Christian history and stuff like that. And there's a lot of stuff to be gleaned from a lot of older Christian writing. I can't think of anybody at the top of my head. I was going to say Thomas Aquinas, but not so much. But yeah, it's been I was maybe about 19, 20 when I stopped to really caring. And it's not like my moral compass suddenly declined massively. Like
you didn't become an axe murderer overnight?
No, I didn't start killing babies, and I didn't start drinking blood or anything. And if you look at me now, I've had long hair for a decade, and I have a beard, and I have lots of tattoos. But I waited, I didn't get a tattoo until I was 25. I graduated college and have 2 bachelor's degrees plus some. I've been a counselor for 6 years. It's like, I'm not your average metalhead, I suppose, but I look like one.
So. See, I think so. So in my view, I think there are 2 types of people that get into this music. It's one is that kind of school outcast that has no friends, and then realizes if I wear a Slipknot T-shirt, actually these metal folk are fairly accepting, so they'll hang out with me. And then 5-6 years later, you see them in a completely different setting, and they dress differently, they look different. They go, well, I outgrew that. And I think then there's a smaller group of people that it comes back to that saying about art chooses you. And it, again, it's about that sort of emotional, that gut level response that I mentioned before. But I think for those people, there are so many varying personalities and types of people in that group, but there's just this one sort of core thing that unites all of them. And I think if you meet someone who's like-minded, you can exactly the way. I mean, this is the first time you and I are properly talking. You can have a conversation because you think there are so many similarities in the way that you think or the way that you process the world that conversation just flows, because there's a common bond and there's a commonality there. And again, I know I'm probably being clunky. It's late at night and I have had a fucking long day and a long week. But again, I think you know what I mean.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I totally agree with you on like that. We have a lot in common. We could probably just talk for a couple of hours, but I wasn't like an outcast kid. I had tons of friends in high school. I'm not going to say I was necessarily popular, but like I was pretty cool with everybody. I know a ton of people. I'm still pretty cool with a lot of people, not from high school per se, but like still got a pretty large group of friends, and I play in like 5 bands. So I've got a lot of friends from bands and stuff. And metal was never really about an outcast thing for me. It was about the feeling and the emotion that metal's always given me. Like, yeah, of course I listen to tons of non-metal, but like, yeah, I'm 28. I'm a metalhead. It's gonna stick around for my life. It's not a phase.
So I'm turning 40, and I'm a director at a fairly significant recruitment company. I have a team now of about 26 people in total. But very often when I sit in the office, so firstly, most people don't spot it straight away, and then when I sit in the office and I connect my headphones to start listening to music while I work, from time to time the Bluetooth connection won't take, and then all you'll hear is this quiet office, and then like,
Yep.
whose music was that? Now people just know it's me.
Yeah.
I had that actually this morning. I had a Nell Nathrak play in the office, and people were like, "What the fuck is that record?"
That's the best. Yeah, I have a really shitty pair of speakers, and I can use Spotify at work, but nothing else. And so I think I was listening to Bluetooth Nord this morning, and I had an intake. I had a new patient to do an intake with. And I just throw that on in the background. I feel it's kind of funny, but like no matter what somebody's background, whether they be black, white, Indian, Asian, or something like that, like they come in and they sit down and they look at me and they're like first time in treatment or something, never been to rehab, and they're kind of scared. They don't know what to expect, and I just throw on something like Bluetooth Nord, and they're like, "All right, this is probably going to be okay."
What did you
At least that's what I like.
What did you make of this new Bluetooth Nord album, by the way?
I love it. I really love it.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was about to say, I spoke about it a couple of episodes ago, and I did say at the time, I think it's one of those, it's like all of their albums, it'll grow on you, and it is definitely grown on me. It's still not, my favorite kind of black metal. This is, I think, why I was attracted to Nott as much as I was. I like that really kind of dark, crushing, just punishing black metal. I want to feel like someone has taken a jackhammer to my ears when I'm listening to music. So, a band like, especially Hallucinogen, is not something I would immediately be attracted to. But the more I listen to it, the more I'm getting into it.
Nice. I love the production of that album quite a bit. The only thing I was kind of disappointed about was the lack of vocals.
Yeah.
It's my favorite not in production, but in writing Saturnian poetry, or Memoria Vista 2, it's 2. No, it's from a couple of years ago. That's my favorite album.
Dialogue with the Stars, right?
Yeah, that's my favorite Bluetooth Nord record. But this is actually coming up. It used to be 777 sex, but now it might be Hallucinogen. I really love the kind of more proggy riffs and kind of guitar solos at some points, and the production on it is like definitely my favorite. I did like his album last year that was like way super industrial, but I would say out of any band per se, like my biggest influence for Nott has been Bluetooth Nord. So
really, that's very
like
interesting.
Yeah, as far as like following in that like footsteps of like some doing your own stuff, and then the style of music he writes, like I don't necessarily write that guitar style, and I'm not going to try to force myself to write something I'm like not good at. But yeah, Bluetooth Nord's probably like my role model in that sense.
Yeah, because
when it comes to Amiensus, it's like a billion things, but yeah.
Yeah, because I can hear stuff like Deathspell Omega. I feel like Nott has quite a lot in common, at least as far as the attitude and the atmosphere is concerned, with a lot of the kind of third, fourth wave black metal bands like Audacious, Above Aurora.
Yep.
Trying to think which other bands I would cast in the category, to a lesser degree, Blaze of Perdition, but those bands that are aggressive, discordant, but they're actually really quite catchy, and they have there's a real emphasis on song structure and songwriting. So every single song on the album, and definitely my initial impressions of the new stuff is exactly this too, same as it was with the EP. all the songs are kind of have their own individual footprint and their own individual sound, and they're very memorable. I feel like metal as a whole went through this period, especially in death metal, but black metal to a degree suffered from this as well, where there were a lot of records that were good, but when the record was done, you couldn't remember what the fuck you'd listened to. You couldn't name a single song off the album. And I feel like there's been a real move away from that, which I am delighted about. And I think black metal is leading the charge as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, totally. I mean, even when I set out to write something dissonant, like on the EP, Nothing, like that's the first riff where it just like it hits the cymbal and it's like da 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 da, and I mean it's not really even a chord that I'm playing in the tuning that I'm playing, and like half of that song isn't really even like it's not chords that I'm playing for the most part. And the same with like Rosa Mystica, the last song on the EP. I honestly was just like moving my hands around the frets to find shit that sounded neat, and I was like, this sounds enough like it's still a chord and not. But whatever, like I definitely write in like certain minor keys, and it's like it's still melodic. I can't get away from it. I think it's ingrained in my head, probably from growing up around listening to melodic black metal for the most part. So again, Arcturus, my biggest influence in black metal of all time, for sure.
Yeah, which I mean, and they are so experimental, and there was so much going on with on all of those albums. Yeah, you can hear that actually a lot more in the newer stuff than you could on the EP. But just speaking of the newer stuff, so the new record, are you going to release that independently? Is that coming out through a label?
No, I talked to a lot of labels, and honestly, because we sat on it, like trying to make sure everything was good and trying to make like music videos and stuff for it. Everyone wanted to release it in like late 2020, and I was like, nah, it's not the point of this band. So I just decided to do it on my own. I hope maybe a label picks it up to do vinyl, but I really could care less about printing any other format of like, I am going to make CDs. I'm going to make a limited run of CDs and release that. And then I probably won't reprint it unless somebody wants to, like I said, do a vinyl. I have lots of friends that run records and stuff, and most of them are like pretty lukewarm on the reception. So I was like, you know what, fuck it. If somebody's not into this because it's not Amiensus or Chrome Waves, then fuck them. I'm just going to release it myself because I don't care.
Yeah. And did you mostly speak to US labels? Did you speak to labels in Europe? Because I could see Apocalyptic Witchcraft or, even Seasons of Mist, I could see picking up the new record quite happily. I primarily, honestly, know more of European labels than I do US, actually. I will say, like, the last couple of labels I've worked with have been Apathia in France and Casus Belli / Beverina Productions from Russia. So Amiensus is signed to the Artisan Era, which is actually kind of more of like a metal, not metalcore, but like a melodic death metal label. But Chrome Waves on Avant Garde and Seasons of Mist. So I actually work more with European labels than I ever do US labels. Yeah, but then they were all keen on everything coming, or on NOTT coming out late next year. Yeah,
and that's why I was like, nah, I can't wait that long. I can't.
No, fair enough. I ask it selfishly because I'm hoping that you guys can come over and play at some point as well. But it's yeah. No, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Right, dude. I'm gonna wrap it up. Anything that you want to add? Anything else that you want to say before we shoot?
I'll just, if it's okay, I'll just do a shout out to everything that I'm working on right now. So my current bands. So next month on November 8th, Chrome Waves is going to be releasing A Cold Light of Despair. It is 3 brand new songs, 3 covers, Nirvana, Slow Dive, and Nick Cave, which we released on Brooklyn Vegan today. Chrome Waves will also probably be releasing a full-length album next spring, as well as another EP. Not our full-length record, The Great Furnace. The first one is just me and one other person, but we'll be releasing approximately 11/29/18. So for you Europeans, 29/11/18, I think, or 19. Anyway, so end of next month, and then Amiensus will have our third full-length album out on the Artisan Era in 2020 called Abreaction. Fail to Decay released an album approximately 1 year ago called Delve, and we are in the middle of writing another album. And Adora Vivos, my Doom band, will maybe, can't promise anything, maybe release another album next year. We have 2 written. We just, we're all in like a bunch of bands, so we'll get around to it when it feels right, but it's some pretty cool shit, so pretty stoked on that. One day it'll come out. And there'll probably be another NOTT album next year, too.
Awesome. Well, dude, thank you so much for being on the show. It was an absolute pleasure having you on. Hopefully, it's the first of a couple of visits, because I've got a hunch we could most likely end up talking 3-4 hours. So, we'll do it again soon. Take care of yourself, buddy. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Peace out.
That is it for this week. Thank you so much to James Benson for joining the show. I had such a good time talking to him, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the conversation as well. That new album, The Great Furnace by Nòtt, is available on Bandcamp, and I will post the link in the description of this video if you want to go and check it out. Go onto the Nòtt Bandcamp, buy some merch, buy the record, and show some support and love to a hard-working American musician. As a matter of fact, check out and support all of his bands. Anyway, I will be back next week, Tuesday, and in the meantime, from the mean streets of Surbiton on the outskirts of London, have yourselves a fucking kick-ass week, and I will see you all again soon.